This is the Dynasty Roundtable podcast. The combine is in the books. The overreactions, the hot takes are flying, Matt Babbage, all over the place. Shrapnel, people are getting hit with shrapnel. Players are getting booed at the combine. Oh my God, what this is crazy. So first of all, how are you doing today? And the whole point of this episode is to react to the combine, put together our top 24 Superflex rookie rankings as quick
Yep.
as we can to get out to the people. So that's what we're doing, first of all. But anyway, how are you, the king of soul, Matt Babbage, the king of Dynasty Soul, here
It's the second
today on
time
the
you've called me
podcast?
that. It makes me laugh every time. I am doing great. I think the best part about the combine for me is the fact that I don't watch it. I don't have to get
Giving
sucked
away the
in,
game right at the beginning there, but
and
that's okay.
yeah. Well, I catch up, and I've built out my trusted news sources across
Yep.
Twitter, my content creators, and it's the combine, man. So everyone's tweeting about it. You're getting clips from everything. So trust me, when I say anything I needed to see, I saw it. I just didn't
Yeah.
feel the need to. And we kind of talked backstage about what happens like with the people who are a little too into the combine. They really fit that they almost have so much excitement about football and everything, which is great, but they feel like they need to get a takeout to feel the excitement. They need to capitalize on something instead of just enjoying what could be a cool event. And then, as you mentioned, we have the people that are booing. So as I normally do, got the aggregate news. That was my combine footage. I had an enjoyable weekend, and it was really fun just updating the rankings post combine. I think the tiers are going to be an interesting discussion just because not only is it a little bit pointless at this point in the season or in the off season to be having debates over your 107 versus your 108 and having them flip flopped, more so than it is understanding the tiers of talent, what we're doing with rookie picks, sleepers, things like that. So it'll be interesting to group the talent together. And we definitely have a lot more discrepancies than we normally do in our rankings. So maybe that I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing yet, but
Yeah, as always, we don't talk to each other before. We just meet, we look at each other's rankings, and we go, okay, here we go. Let's do a show. Which, by the way, Will Howard also got cheered as well. So
he
let's
did get he
let's.
did get cheered. He did get
He
booed. It was
said
just a
that
really
that
weird
yeah,
environment.
yeah. So he got cheered as well. I don't know.
You
According
would
to this source, the 11 Warriors. I don't know if this is a credible website here. 11 Warriors. Is this through? It doesn't matter. It doesn't. But anyway, he gets a big applause on this play here. But anyway, I just to speak to what you just said, I agree with you. It's hard to consume the entire combine, especially when increasingly it feels like players are realizing that unless especially if you're one of the top guys like Ashton Jeanty, like there's no way that Ashton Jeanty would ever do anything at the combine. Um, but the 40 times are cool. But I'll say this: there were, let's see, three or two running backs that did the 3 cone drill. Uh, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 did the 20 yard shuttle. A bunch, they all did the broad jump. But anyway, like you get the point. Like I don't know. I kind of feel, and maybe I could be wrong, that we're witnessing the slow death of the combine and the way that we evaluate these prospects. But I don't know. Somebody out there is going to probably say I'm crazy and stupid and all the words, but um, I don't know. It's just to me, if there's no incentive for the top prospects to do anything, that's a problem. I don't know. That's just how I see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Pro days are going to reign supreme, and who can blame them? They're more rested.
Yeah.
They're not dealing with as many interviews. They're on their own turf, especially for quarterbacks playing with your own wide receivers. It's a big deal, and so I enjoy the combine. I'm not necessarily going to be upset or anything if they have to get rid of it. I think the city of Indianapolis is going to have some problems with it with all the
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
all the economic impacts of it. But anyway, let's get into the rankings.
Let's do it. So again, we're trying not to overreact here, but there's no question here at the 101. We both have Ashton Jeanty as our player one in Superflex and tight end premium. It doesn't matter. So yeah, there's really not much to discuss here, but anything on Jeanty before we move on down to tier two?
No, not necessarily. The only thing I'll say is that we are inching closer and closer. It was a hot take to say that Jeanty isn't the 101, right now and before now. The later we get to draft season, and albeit it's improbable that somebody usurps him, but man, if there's a surprise and Omarion Hampton is the first running back off the board, or Hampton goes to a situation that might be a little bit more friendly for a running back, i.e., if Jeanty goes to a team that might be losing more games versus Hampton a winning team, we're gonna have to start taking the guardrails off a little bit and accepting the fact that maybe there's room for a new 101. Do you think that Jeanty is locked in? Like there is no situation on earth, no possible way that Jeanty can get knocked out of that 101 spot?
I won't say there's no possibility. I won't say that because I've seen people declare a champion of the 101 way too early before, but it does feel different this time around, and like
For sure.
Genty's almost assuredly gonna get first round, top 15, top 20 draft, top 20 probably at the worst draft capital. Now I'll say this. I think those other running backs closed the gap a little bit with what they did at the combine, in the eyes of the fantasy community. So I think the 101 just became less valuable, unfortunately. But
Yeah,
I still think it's worth putting on the block.
that's a better
Now,
way to put it. That's a better way to put it than what I was getting at. The
yeah,
101 got a little less valuable.
yeah. Because I don't know if there are too many people, and let us know on YouTube in the comments, leave us a review or whatever, however you do that on the Apple podcast. Which, by the way, download the podcast if you haven't already. I don't know if there are too many people that are going to fall for that trap at the 101 because I think it's widely known, and I would also say this, that if I can tier down, if I can go from the 101 to say the 104, the 105, we'll talk about some of these other players here in a minute, and pick up an additional piece on top, because I think before the combine, you maybe could have gotten an additional first round pick to move up that high. I don't know for certain, but I think it's going to be really hard to convince somebody to move up to get Jeanty now that he's not doing anything and these other running backs are. And we're in this instant gratification society where we're seeing Omarion Hampton run a 4.46 at the combine. Oh my god. And Quinshon Judkins did the same thing, and Trevion Henderson is doing things at the combine. So you see what I'm getting at here is not only are there a lot of other good running backs, but these other good running backs are doing things, and Ashton Jeanty's sitting on the sidelines, and we always have an eye on what's happening right now. So yeah, maybe it changes once he gets drafted, maybe by the Cowboys or some crazy landing spot even higher than that. I don't know. But as of right now, I think it's going to be a tough deal to swing for the 101 because everybody's aware now, if they weren't already, like, oh my God, the other top running backs are really good too.
Just a really quick hypothetical, and then we'll move on. I know it's unlikely, but let's just say for the fun of it, Jeanty to the
Mm-hmm.
Raiders, Hampton to the Cowboys would be unprecedented for NFL draft capital.
Yeah. No, I mean, that would do it. That would get real
That would do
close.
it, right? That would do it.
Yeah, I think that would do it. I really do think that would do it. You might
All
still
right.
have some people picking Jeanty, but that would do
I
it,
just
I
wanted
think.
to I wanted to give you a little heat check there, and I just wanted
All right.
to see. Wouldn't that be funny?
That would be something. Crazier things have happened, I'll say that. I'm gonna go ahead and put up tier two. here. So Matt Babbage and I have a disagreement here. I have Tet McMillan at 2. He has Omari and Hampton at 2, but he has Tet McMillan lower than I do. So our Dynasty Roundtable consensus ranking is going to have Omari and Hampton ahead of Tet McMillan. I'm glad to see that we have Trevion Henderson really high. Both of us.
Truther
Both of
now.
us. Yeah, both of us have him. Well, you have him at 6. I have him at 4. Um, and we also have Travis Hunter in this tier. I'm a little. You're now the Travis
Yeah,
Hunter
I'll
stan,
explain.
and we have so much to
I'm
explain
gonna
as
I'm
a
gonna
very
rank him.
clunkily.
I'm gonna
Go
rank him
ahead.
as a
Yeah.
receiver until I find out he's not. Because personally, I don't think there's anything actionable in ranking him as if we don't know. Because that's a meaningless ranking. Because essentially, if you rank him as a receiver full time, or near full time, obviously, you have a 50-50 shot of being right. If you rank him as a DB most time, maybe 25% receiver, then you have a 50% chance of being right. But if you rank him in this middle, like if he's a full-time cornerback, I'm probably not taking him within the first 28 picks. Yet, that's where he's going to fall in a lot of these rankings because he's in this like nowhere. And I don't want to prepare for my rookie drafts that way. I want to prepare as if he's going to be a receiver because personally, again, it's a personal take. I still think he's just a game changer at receiver. I think he can play both ways. I think he wants to play both ways. I don't know if that's going to be up to him. And if Travis Hunter's not a receiver, I'm going to drop him down my rankings. Part of me wanted to keep him high so that we could talk about him today.
Yeah.
But I'll do the simple thing and he'll plummet down my rankings and that'll be that. But when it comes to talent tiers, I think this saga has gone on so long. It's almost time to be back on the other side of it and remind people like, hey, Travis Hunter's really good. Like, yeah, people have been talking your ear off for weeks about this whole debacle. But at the end of the day, if he's a receiver, absolutely belongs in this tier. He's my number 3 prospect overall, right behind Omari and Hampton and Jeanty. He's my wide receiver 1. I think that's how it pans out, and I'm gonna keep calling my shot and seeing that way until I know I'm wrong.
I have him at 8, and the only reason I have him at 8 is because of the cornerback thing. I'll just say this. I feel like I've said this before, but I think it bears repeating. If he were a wide receiver and he said, I have no interest in playing cornerback anymore, I am whatever NFL team drafts me, I'm playing wide receiver, he would be easily the wide receiver 1 in this class.
No doubt about it.
And I don't think anybody would debate that. I think it would be like Ashton Jeanty is the RB1, and clearly Travis Hunter's the wide receiver 1. Now, I think the debate would be, I really think this. I think you would have 50-50 people taking Jeanty and Travis Hunter at the 101. Like if Travis Hunter were a wide receiver. And you could make a great case for him being the 101. We were just talking about, well, what's the doomsday scenario for Ashton Jeanty falling out of the 101? Well, the ultimate doomsday scenario might be if Travis Hunter is a wide receiver or gets drafted by the Browns and then they say, you know what, we're going to play him 80-90% of the time, or we view him primarily as a wide receiver on our team, which is the rumor right now. Is the Browns view him as a wide receiver and the Titans view him as a cornerback. I think I saw that tweet somewhere, but again, and that's a rumor. I'm not reporting the news or anything, but you get the point. Like, he's a super talented guy, and to me, I wish he would just choose a position and to make our lives easier. But when you're a super talented athlete, you want to do things that have never been done before. So kudos to him. But I will say,
Exactly.
if he wants to play both ways, that means he's going to be playing roughly about 100 snaps a game if he's a starter, on both sides of the ball, and I don't know if anybody's ever done that before since like the 1920s or whatever.
That's what I say. I think when push comes to shove, like it feels like when he's presented with that reality, it feels like he's gonna be like, all right, I'll play receiver then.
I hope so. I hope you're right, but
Maybe I'm wish casting.
I'm
I
just
don't know.
saying. I'm just saying. In some leagues, depending on when you draft, I mean, this is going to be the ultimate wild card. Because in some leagues, and I've heard it in our YouTube comments, some people, I can't draft that guy in the first round. And I'm
Why not?
thinking, like, are you crazy? Why not? Especially if you're like, here's the ultimate best scenario if you won the championship or if you were in the contention for the championship. This is the gift that keeps on. This is like the ultimate treasure that's just been put in your lap would be Travis Hunter. Because yeah, is there a world where he doesn't do much for your fantasy team or he's okay? Sure. But is there a world where he's a top 5 dynasty wide receiver? Yeah, that world exists. And you could take him at the 111, 112 because some idiot is saying, oh, he's going to play cornerback, and I know it because I know everything. It's like, no, we don't know, man. Like, nobody who's telling you anything right now actually knows. So if your draft had to be today, I think that this would be a responsible place to put him. It's in the middle of the first round. I think that's and you know what? Like I just said, there are going to be some leagues where he falls and falls and falls and falls. And you might even be able to get him in the early second round. And at that case, I'd be breaking my phone to draft him.
Be hitting the button so hard I'd have to go get a new one.
Yeah.
I'd have to log on to the computer, and then I'd hit the mouse button so hard that I would break that, and then I'd have to call my commissioner and have him pick it for me.
You want to know something? I'm doing these. I maxed out the little board, and I'm doing a bunch of these slow drafts right now. This is a quick aside. Every Travis Hunter, and I'm not joking. He's like ranked outside the top 100 in ADP. He might even be ranked outside the top 120. I think he's like somewhere in the one teens range. And I don't know if my exposure to Travis Hunter is going to be 100%, but every time I open my phone and I see, I scroll down a little bit, Travis Hunter's still available. I don't even look at my roster. I just draft him. I'm like, it's best ball. Like, what are we doing with Travis Hunter outside the top 100?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, especially in best ball. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe I'm nuts. Maybe I'm just flushing a bunch of money down the toilet. I'm still trying to learn how to be a best ball bro. Maybe I will be someday. Let's we talked about Travis Hunter for like 10 minutes. Any thoughts on any of these other? We're very pro Travion Henderson. We're very pro Travis Hunter. Very pro Amarian Hampton. I think the most reluctant click in this range is Tet McMillan, but I still have him at number 2. Maybe I'm giving away the playbook there. If I'm reluctant to take him at 2, maybe I shouldn't have him at 2, but that's where I have him right now. I still think he's really good, but it's just like, that makes me nervous a little bit. I like Luther Burden a lot. I think he's got all the upside in the world. Any final thoughts on any one of these players before we move on?
Yeah, I'll talk about the other receivers a little bit while you load up the next tier. But
sure,
Tet, I've come around a lot on Tet. Like, I'm still apprehensive, and I think there's some pretty big concerns still there. But the profile and the upside is certainly very palpable. Like, he has what a lot of other receivers in this class don't have, especially the top end ones, the capability of being a team's 1A. Like, he does have that in him. And so I'm still respecting that. And I still very much want to see how the NFL responds. I'm very confident at this point he's going to be outside of Travis Hunter, the first receiver taken off the board. He's going to go pretty high. So the NFL is going to give him a lot of respect. So I'm going to let that play out. I do have Egbuka over Burden. I made that flip back. I briefly went Burden, and then I watched more Egbuka film, and I was like, nope, 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 nope. I'm reminded why I had him over Burden in the first place. I just think he's a little bit more of a complete player. Especially, I think he's going to translate so well into the NFL, and it's not because of the helmet. It's not because he went to Ohio State, although that does help because they do seem to produce NFL ready wide receivers, but it's his size and go watch Ohio State play football. And I watched the Penn State game today. And what I noticed there was the offensive line was getting destroyed by that pass rush. And how did they respond to that? They kept bringing Egbuka inside, like close to inline, like a tight end in the backfield, using him as a blocker, as a chipper, and being much more compact to fend off that pass rush. And that is a huge problem for so many NFL teams is how do we put a personnel package together to where we can overcome a bad offensive line, we can keep defenses honest, and we can have players that can excel in all these different scenarios, whether it be playing tight and being able to block or work your way through traffic or win outside, used as a screen receiver, gain yak. These are all the things that Egbuka has a very deep knowledge of. Every time I watch him, he's always in the right spot. And it doesn't matter what the route is. There's very few times where I'm saying, you know what, I would have loved a better route out of Egbuka. There's so many times where you watch in the film and you say that block from Egbuka just gained 3 more yards on the play, at least. And that's the type of stuff that NFL GMs are going to pick up. I don't necessarily, I'm not super confident that Burden doesn't, sorry, let me rephrase that without the double negatives. I think there's still a really good chance that Luther Burden goes ahead of Egbuka in the draft. I still view Burden as more of a slot dependent, 1B gadgety role than I do Egbuka. I think Egbuka's blocking ability and his versatility is going to allow him to be on the field much more than Burden is, especially early on.
No, Egbuka is a clean prospect. He really is. I like the difference, and just to be candid, these tiers are a little wonky because I have Egbuka at 10. You have him at 5. I have Luther Burden at 5. You have him at 7. So we have a disagreement there, but it's not necessarily that I don't like Egbuka, because I do. He has the size. He's a prototypical wide receiver that can do just about anything you ask him to do, and the tape's really good. I just like these running backs ahead of him, and I have Cam Ward ahead of. So I have Judkins, Caleb Johnson still, Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Luther Burden. So it's not like it's not like there's some surprise candidate ahead of him. And it's a very, very thin margin, all these players here.
100%. And that's kind of
Um,
why I mentioned too, like, we're not going to
yeah,
spend too much time debating like the 5 spot difference, like
yeah,
there's a lot of really good players on this list. And
yeah,
draft capital and landing spot will shake a lot of this out. So like the Burden Egbuka conversation could be null and void in 2 months. We have no idea.
yeah. And I'll just say this to Cam Ward in this quarterback class in general scares me, because especially from a fantasy perspective, like they don't really run a ton. And
Mm-hmm.
this is why I think Jackson Dart could get steamed up boards, especially considering he had a good NFL combine, or at least the people that watch these things and analyze these things have good things to say. So I would have a rough time, and I know some people are going to disagree with me, but I would have a rough time taking Cam Ward over Egbuka, over Quinshon Judkins, even though I have him ranked. Um, I have him ranked right now, and this is the difference between rankings and process and all this stuff, right? Because I have Cam Ward ranked 6, you have him 11th, so you're less high on him than I am,
Yeah, I think that was
and
just the same thing with Egbuka and Burden was just like, I just
Yeah.
had players I put between 6 and
Yeah.
11.
Yeah. But especially with teams where I don't need a quarterback in Superflex, like let's say I loaded up this past year and I got Penix late and I got Bo Nix late and I drafted Drake May and I have a couple veterans. Like let's say I'm set at quarterback. Like there's no way I'm touching Cam Ward in the middle of the first round. I would definitely prefer, Burden, Egbuka, Quinshon Judkins, even Caleb Johnson, even though he ran a slow time at the NFL Combine. I don't really necessarily care all that much about that. If anything, that just means I'm going to get more Caleb Johnson. Like I think Caleb Johnson's plenty fast enough
Mhm.
at that
Absolutely.
size, but like, so I don't know if he's going to fall a ton, but he did fall. And just for the podcast audience, that's our tier 3: Egbuka, Quinshon Judkins, Cam Ward, and Caleb Johnson. But the overall point I was trying to make is if there's a click that's going to be real hard for me to make, and we'll talk about Shedeur Sanders here in a little bit, because that's another click where if I'm sitting there on the clock and I have to make a draft pick, I'm hesitating with these quarterbacks. This is not a good year, in my opinion, to need a quarterback in a super flex league, and I would be looking at other options, like if you're forced to take one of these guys, maybe make a trade or make something else happen. But man, I don't know how you feel about that. I get a sense from your rankings, like maybe you're in a similar boat, but
For
these
sure.
these these other players are just so good at their positions, and these quarterbacks are just meh at theirs. So
I'm not QB needy in very many super flex organizations right now. Those that I'm trying to fill that need elsewhere because I do want to take advantage of the positions in this class. I don't really want to find myself forced to take a Cam Ward. I probably will if I'm that strapped and I've tried other options that won't work. But like I would honestly rather try and take a short-term rental in Stafford for a year running it back in LA than taking Cam Ward, and I'd rather be able to take a Judkins or a Caleb Johnson and then re-roll. But if I truly get to like the end of the first round and everyone in tier 3 is gone and I'm a QB needy team, like I'm good with clicking the button on Cam Ward. I have him one spot behind Trey Harris, but that's splitting hairs at the end of the day.
yeah. Any thoughts on one of the four in tier 3 before we move on to tier 4?
I think tier 4's got a lot of meat in it. So let's
All right, so our tier 4, and again, probably been doing a bad job for the podcast audience. Tier 4: Trey Harris, Tyler Warren, Shedeur Sanders, Matthew Golden makes a huge jump in our rankings. Dylan Sampson and Alec Ayumanor. I thought I was Mr. Alec Ayumanor. I have him at 21. Matt Babich has him at 13. So I don't know if you want to start there, but this tier, like you said, it's juicy. Especially with IU Manor, Golden having the 4.29 40-yard dash that everybody was talking about. Dylan Sampson didn't run and measured 3 inches shorter than what he was listed at least from what I saw. He's listed at 5'11", he measured at 5'8" at the combine. So I don't know about that. But yeah, just take it in whatever direction you want to go in this tier.
real quick. This happens at college, I'm sure too, but it's way worse at the high school level. In high school football, you'd go around and there's a day, I don't know how other teams did it, but there's a day where we would go around and he would say you would ask us individually for our heights and weights to put it into the roster. And I'd say, like 6 foot 170, and he'd go 6'2", 190. And like that, you would say your weight, and then they'd give you 2 inches and about 15 pounds every single time.
Yeah.
But it's crazy to see something like 3 inches. But yeah, I'll start with Alec Manor, and even talk about Matthew Golden a little bit. But now that the combine's over and we're about a month and a half, it's early March, but really we're about a month away from the draft. And now is about the time, especially post combine, getting to pro days, is where we could start projecting a little bit better draft capital. So when a guy like Matthew Golden runs a 4.39, a guy like Alec
4.29. 4.29.
4.29.
Yeah.
Sorry, Isaiah Bond was the 4.39.
No, Isaiah Bond was the. Oh
Right?
yeah, he did. You're right.
He's
You're
the
right about that.
4.39. When a Matthew Golden runs a 4.29, when an Alec Manor at 6'2", 206 runs a 4.4, and has, just a great showing overall as well through the other um, portions of the combine and everything. The NFL is going to take notice. And the odds now of Ayumanner and Golden being day or round 2 at worst are getting higher and higher. Golden now is becoming a near probable bet to be a first round pick. I'm not going to go all crazy and say that he's going to be the first receiver off the board right now, but he's probably going to be a later first round pick at this rate. Alec could find himself in similar company depending on how teams view him, but he seems almost locked and loaded to be a second round receiver, along with like a Trey Harris. So they belong in that tier. I feel like the talent and the size that we had already kind of known them, the current knowns that we had a couple months ago, they were enough to get them in this tier. What was very, very, very hard to tell up until now was, what is the NFL going to view Alec Ayumanner like? Are they going to think of him as, a gem who has the requisite size, speed? He has elite burst, had, 90th percentile target share, upper percentile dominator rating in college? Or are they going to think of him as, a relatively unknown receiver from Stanford? And now we know that they're taking him very seriously. They're taking Matthew Golden very seriously. I think Golden is someone I struggled with talent-wise for a while. Was able to get more context and get past the box scores. A big issue, and this makes sense because this matches the eye test. Quinn Ewers is bad. I don't know if you knew this, Seth. He's not very good. So it turns out that the receivers on your team don't look very good either when their quarterback stinks. But I was watching Wake Up with Ray G and Jay Rich. Great show. If you haven't checked that out, they put out, they're very real, they cut through the noise. They're great content, shameless plug, but they were bringing up Matthew Golden stats, and I don't know where he got this information. He didn't say where, but Matthew Golden, when targeted in the offense, put up similar success rate and catch rate numbers as guys like Tet McMillan and Emeka Egbuka. Luther Burden had similar yak per target numbers as Luther Burden, Emeka Egbuka, and had better explosive ratings and chunk play rating or percentages than those two. That was more on par with the likes of Tet McMillan and Jaden Higgins. So the advanced metrics on Matthew Golden actually look really good. So I think we're now on the cutting edge of the rankings. You were way ahead of Matthew Golden, in terms of me, but I've caught up and are recognizing that the NFL is going to put some serious weight into these two in the draft.
Yeah, I think, and this is amazing how far it's come. I would kind of be shocked if he's not a first round pick,
Golden? Yeah.
And Alec Ayumanner, and I've said this already, I would be shocked if he falls out of day 2. Like, that would be a shocking, like, it's probably less shocking than Matthew Golden. Maybe Matthew Golden gets taken early day 2, so maybe if he falls out of the first round, it's not all that shocking, but I think it would be, like, my jaw would hit the floor if Alec Ayumanner fell out of day 2.
I don't think he'll fall out of round 2.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think
if the Patriots pass up on him at any point in the second round, I'll be pissed. We better have drafted Trey Harris.
Yeah, or some wide receiver. Hopefully they don't. There's still time for Jalen Polk, but I digress. Like, the real question mark. So I don't have any questions about those guys. Like, their value, especially in Dynasty, is going to be strong, and it may even get stronger as we march toward the draft. My biggest question in this tier is Shedeur Sanders. And I said it, I'll say it again. That is going to be the most difficult click for me to make, is Shedeur Sanders. Maybe not in this range. Like, if he falls to the second round, okay, sure, I'll take Shedeur Sanders. But when I'm deciding between, Quinshon Judkins, Caleb Johnson, Emeka Egbuka, and Cam Ward and Shadeur Sanders. If Cam Ward's already gone and I need a quarterback, I still don't know if I could do it. I still don't know. I'd rather trade that pick for a known commodity. So that's where I'm at with Shadeur Sanders and really this entire quarterback class. Tyler Warren's interesting to me because, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I think Tyler Warren is clearly my tight end one. I don't know if it's by a country mile or not, but clearly I think he's the best tight end in this class. And then the rest of them, like the Harold Fannons, the Arroyos, as I hit my microphone, the Lovelands, Mason Taylor's interesting, but the rest of them I have questions on, and I don't know if there's a perfect prospect in here. But I wonder if the dynasty community, and we'll see because there are NFL people too typing up this tight end class. But I wonder if this tight end class is getting just a little bit too much hype because of the Brock Bowers effect. Because I don't see a Brock Bowers in this class yet. There are rumors that, and as much as I like him, because I do like Tyler Warren, I mean, we're seeing mock drafts out there, or I had seen him where he's going top 10, like to the Panthers in the top 10. And that would be great for Dynasty. And I think that's a great landing spot. But I'm thinking, like, really? Brock Bowers got taken 13th overall by the Raiders last year. Like, I get, like, in tight end on the list of needs for an NFL team, if the Bears, my favorite team, if you don't know, if the Chicago Bears ever took a tight end in round one, he better be freaking Rob Gronkowski, a Hall of Famer. Like, he better be. Otherwise, like, I don't know. Aren't there some left tackles or offensive linemen or corners or pass rushers or wide receivers? Like, tight end is probably like 19th on the list of important positions for a football team, in my opinion. So taking one in the top 10, like, I don't know. How has that really ever worked out too well? I know Brock Bowers, we have recency bias with Brock Bowers, and I
Kyle
guess
Pitts,
TJ
TJ
Hawkins,
Hawkinson.
Kyle Pitts has been a terrible pick. TJ Hawkinson, they traded him out of town. So I don't know. I'm probably talking too long about this, but that's my opinion on the tight end class. Kind of like, I'm kind of wondering, if are we hyping this up a little bit too much? I don't know.
Well, it almost feels better for Warren though, because if he's not getting that type of draft capital, he's still going to be a first round pick almost assuredly. So if he ends up
Yeah.
falling to a team that's a little bit better, like the Denver Broncos in round one, sign me up. Like, he is my tight end
Yeah.
one. You're correct that there's no Brock Bowers here, and Warren certainly isn't that. But the tight end landscape, as we've talked about, is just terrible. So if you get a guy like Warren who's going to be a first round pick in a good situation, average at worst situation, I will take a shot on that player 10 times out of 10, especially in tight end premium.
I think that's fair. I think landing spot is, it's going to be really important for these guys. So here's tier 5. Jackson Dart, Devin Neal, Brashard Smith, Colston Loveland, and Jalen Knoll, who I absolutely love. Jalen Knoll, I must have him a lot higher than you.
Just a few spots, 18
just a
versus 22.
Okay, that's not as bad as I thought then. But I think I want to start with Jackson Dart, and I think we're probably lower than consensus right now, because I think in a super flex league, there's probably some people that have him insanely high, and I like him. I think he might be my favorite quarterback in this class. I thought about putting him ahead of Shadeur Sanders, but I chickened out, and I kind of want to just do that. Just I don't know if he's as good as Shadeur Sanders, but to me, he's a lot cleaner of a prospect. Now, he did play in that Old Miss offense, and a lot of people think that, gimmick city. I don't know. He to me, he looks good. I'm not an NFL scout, so maybe somebody can tell me in the comments whether, the scheme at Old Miss is just a fantasy trap, because, but I do know this. Here's the kind of logic I apply, and this might be dumb, but everyone let me know. I like to take people's feelings and bitterness and turn it against them, because people drafted Matt Corral, people drafted Xavier Legette for, well, he went to South Carolina, but people drafted Jonathan Mingo, right? Like, these things happened, and people are kind of feel like they, I don't know if we should ever enter this world where it's like, oh, he went to school X, he can never be successful. I don't know if that narrative is ever true, because these players are different people, with different learning capabilities. Half the battle is being able to pick up the offensive scheme, which may be part
Right.
of the problem for some of these players from Ole Miss. I don't know, but like I am very intrigued with Jackson Dart, and if he takes a hit in his value because of the perception of, oh, Matt Corral failed, or this Ole Miss offense is gimmicky. I don't know enough about the offense to really know. I don't watch Ole Miss football, but what I have seen of Jackson Dart has been very impressive to me. Impressive enough, as I mentioned, that I thought about putting him ahead of Shedeur Sanders in these rankings, but I didn't because I'm a chicken. So, your thoughts?
Yeah, Dart's an impressive prospect. I have similar thoughts there, although I haven't really watched a lot of film on him. I kind of think it would be funny to do a live like Jackson Dart and Shedeur Sanders film breakdown and just see what we come away with, like watch one after the other. But I'm a little bit
Yeah.
more interested in the other parts of this tier. I agree we're a little bit lower in consensus. I still want to see it first. I want to see how the NFL treats him. Malik Willis was supposed to be like a first round quarterback and ended up being like a fourth round quarterback. So
Yeah.
uh, things happen in the NFL draft cycle. But Devin Neal and Brashard Smith, I think we've arrived at a very solid consensus ranking of where we have Brashard Smith, in terms that you actually have flipped now and have him ahead of me. But
Mhm.
I'm becoming a little bit more of a realist. I'm just afraid of, I'd rather be a rankings flip flopper and put him back up if I need to. I just don't think he's gonna get. I'm still wondering if he's gonna get like round 3 draft capital. And if it does not get picked in day 2, he it's going to be tough to put him in tier 5 with the rest of these names. I think he had a great combine. He's on track to doing that with his profile, and then running what did he run, like a 4 4 something, 4.39,
Yeah.
which is excellent for his size. So there's still a lot to love about him. Obviously, he's still one of my favorite running backs in this prospect cycle. That being said, I do think having Neal and Brashard Smith is the correct order. I don't know if that's how it is in your rankings, or if that's just how it shook out in consensus, but I think we got the right order there. People got to stop. What's all the hate with Devin Neal? What's all? He
Because
just
he
didn't
ran a
run. He just didn't run quite
Yeah.
as fast as we
Well,
thought he would. Like, I don't know if either his nor Caleb Johnson's 40 times are 100% accurate.
yeah. I mean, they're as accurate as they can be.
Well, Caleb
But
Johnson stumbled out of the blocks, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like,
oh, he did.
form and that kind of stuff can take a lot more time off your 40 than you would think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and the 40. I mean, I don't know I don't know how many times we need to be, you know, burned by the 40-yard dash, or like a slow, quote unquote, slow running back like Kyron Williams, runs a terrible 40, and he becomes the ultimate dynasty value for people who are really paying attention and willing to take a chance. Really, not even a chance, just like stash him on your bench. But I agree. Devin Neal is another one of these guys. I think his running style, in particular, with his patience and his vision, is, I don't think this 40 time is as detrimental to his value going forward.
For sure.
Especially if he gets the day 2 draft capital that I think he's going to get. I think people will forget about the 40 time, to be honest with you. I think this is a player that NFL teams are going to absolutely fall in love with, because he does just about everything well, at least from what I've seen. Now, he doesn't have breakaway speed, but you don't need that to be a successful NFL running back. So I'm right there with you. I think Devin Neal's one of my favorite prospects, and I'm actually kind of ashamed I have him as low as I do. I have him at 20. You have him at 16. I have Brashard Smith at 16. You have him at 21, and I still think the perfect comp for Brashard Smith is Tyrone Tracy Jr. I mean, their career it's almost scary how their careers have played out basically the same, you
I
know?
lied to you a little bit. I did watch a little bit of the combine.
Oh, well,
I
okay.
exaggerated when I said I didn't watch it at all. I watched a little bit of it. I watched enough to hear Rich Eisen compare Brashard Smith to guess who?
Tyrone Tracy.
And I thought about, and I didn't do this, and I'm almost ruining the entire act because I'm saying it like this, but I almost clipped that and said I've been saying this for months, but that felt self-absorbed, so I didn't do that. And that's probably why I don't tweet about my fantasy takes that much, because of that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see
man.
the world.
We could get to 20K easy on Twitter, don't you think? If we just started tweeting fantasy stuff.
If we just started tweeting,
eye catchy formatty.
What would your first
stuff.
tweet about Jalen Noel be?
That's I'd have to go look at. I'm not adept at the format on the Twitter.
If you had to brand one aspect of Jalen Noel and why he's up here in your rankings, why he's 18 in your rankings, what would that? What would you focus on?
I think from what I've seen from the Senior Bowl that he had, and from people that I trust in the fantasy football space talking about this stuff, people and these people are careful to throw around comps like this, but I'm hearing the Amon-Ra St. Brown comp with him, and I just think he's a dog, man. I just think he had the 4.39 40-yard dash. So I don't know if there's anything specifically about him that I'm like, oh yeah, we can point to this. But I think he's a good route runner. I think he's tough. I think, I just think he's a player that I hate to use this phrase again, that NFL teams are just going to love.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong. I felt the same way about Roman Wilson last year, if you remember that. So, and again, Roman Wilson was hurt. I mean, maybe Roman Wilson bounces back this year, but bounces back or, does something this year. Anything. Bounces back. Implies that he had somewhere to bounce back from. But Jalen Noel, very similar vibes to Roman Wilson last year, and I still think Roman Wilson can be good, but like when I hear the Amon-Ra St. Brown comp thrown around, my ears perk up a little bit. I watch the tape and I'm like, yeah, he's good. He looks good. So I don't know how you format that into a tweet. I
think we learned why we don't tweet too often.
Yeah.
That would have been a thread.
So probably like Jalen Noel equals Amon-Ra St. Brown, but then I'd be stealing somebody's comp. So maybe I need to come up with my own comp that's, similar to Amon-Ra St. Brown, or maybe I could be like the Don Cliveman guy who just copy paste tweets from other people's accounts.
You could be an aggregator.
Yeah, I could do that. It just feels like that shouldn't be allowed, right? I mean, is there no?
It shouldn't be, but
are there no teachers with the software that you can plug in to the Twitter, turnitin.com or whatever that it used to be? Do you remember this, or did you ever have anything like this?
No, I'm not a teacher. I would never know.
Okay, all right. Well, no, I didn't
copy and paste tier 6.
I didn't even use it as a teacher. I just remember having to deal with it as a student, and I remember thinking, "Oh no, Turnitin.com is going to catch me if I plagiarize this paper." Not that I would ever do such a thing. All right, tier 6 starts with Ollie Gordon, who, oh man, I don't know if you knew this, but he ran a slow 42. It's the death.
Yeah.
It's the death of your dynasty rookie value is the slow 40 time.
Milrose in our top 24 consensus. What the fuck?
You have him at 27. Don't pretend like that you're some.
Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty big distinction. I would never use a second round pick on Jalen Milroe.
Yeah. Yeah, I
If you could look me
mean,
dead in the eyes and say that you don't like this quarterback class, but you would take Jalen Milroe at the end of the second round, you're fucking crazy.
let's see. How many is that? Is that 25? I think maybe it
Yeah, it's
is.
close enough.
Yeah, where do I have Jalen Milroe? I have him at 22. What?
22.
Yeah, I might have been drunk. I don't know. When I was updating these rankings. I think I couldn't get the fantasy upside out of my head with him. But
I mean,
like the problem with that is
again,
like he's not good. Like that's the
he's
problem.
not good. I would
Like
take, but I know it
is he
seems like a
just
small
could he be as good
distinction.
as Justin Fields though?
I know
Like
it
could he
seems like
be
a small
that?
distinction, but I would throw an early third on him. I would not throw a second round pick on him. I know it seems like a small distinction, but one, you're at the front side of the draft of in the third round. You're looking for a lot more upside there, which Milroe does have. I just don't think it's very palpable, or
Yeah.
obtainable, I should say. Ollie Gordon, you mentioned him running a slow 40. So you already kind of mentioned like you don't need a slow 40 or a fast 40 to be fast like David Montgomery. He has plenty of speed to put out chunk runs and everything, but his 40 time is terrible. Being at his size, though, he's still at a 66th percentile speed score, which is very good. It's not excellent. It's not 70th or 75th percentile or above, but so I'm not too worried about that. He had an 80th
Mm-hmm.
percentile target share, an 86th percentile college dominator rating. We saw a 1,700 yard season with 22 touchdowns, 40 receptions, and 330 receiving yards as a sophomore at Oklahoma State. These things don't go away. And yeah, the most recent year of film is bad, but I still think teams are going to like Ollie Gordon a lot. And I don't think we should be too surprised if he goes ahead of Devin Neal and Bashard Smith and maybe even Dylan Sampson in the draft because these
Yeah.
things happen.
No, yeah. I mean, I told you. I mean, he reminded me of another Oklahoma State running back, Chuba Hubbard,
Chuba
with
Hubbard.
just kind of the career arc that he had in college. And I think in this range, as much as I like Jalen Royals, as much as I like Jaden Higgins, because I like those guys. Which, by the way, Ollie Gordon, Jalen Milroe, DJ Giddens, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Royals, Cam Scatabo. Sorry if you already said that, and I just didn't pay attention to you. Oh, you did?
No, I did not.
Oh, good. Okay. Because sometimes my wife tells me things and I don't listen. And Matt's kind of like my work wife on the podcast. So
I do it all the
um,
time. I recognize I do it. Like I won't listen to it, and then I'll be like, oh, and then I'll be like, wait, what did I just respond to? And
exactly.
then a half second later,
Exactly.
I have to go, wait,
Yes.
what?
Yes. That's exactly what happens to me. And I don't know. I wish I could slow myself down. And sometimes I do. But most of the time, I'm just like, yeah, okay. And then I walk away, and 5 seconds later, I'm like, "What the hell did she just say?" I need to go ask for forgiveness, or I don't know. And most of the time, I just move on with my day.
Yeah, yeah.
Just throw caution to the wind. F it. We're moving on.
It's just a fact of life. It
I got a
happens.
podcast to record. I got more important things than
Just like it's a fact of life that DJ Giddens needs to be higher up on the average person's rankings.
Yeah, I think he's a guy, and again,
A winner
the
for sure.
the combine, man. You talk about. I know everybody's talking about Bashul Tootin, all right, because he ran the fastest 40 time. But DJ Giddens at 6 feet, 212 pounds, ran a 4.43. You know who else ran a 4.43? Not that it really matters, but Trevion Henderson, ran a 4.43. And if you pull up, let me just do it real quick. I know what the answer is, but I want to get the actual stats, right, that he put up at Kansas State. And I was talking to somebody who is a diehard Kansas State fan, and I told him, and he's not like a fantasy football guy, like diehard like us. Doesn't host his own podcast, so he doesn't qualify. But he was surprised, like when he heard the time, he was like, "Oh, really? DJ Giddens ran a 4.43." It's like, yeah, Giddens ran a 4.43. You're talking about a guy back-to-back seasons with over 1,200 rushing yards, over 1,300 this season, and then there's that threshold we like. He catches passes out of the backfield. 29 receptions in 2023, 21 receptions this year, and like when you get to this stage in the draft and Cam Scadabo's sitting right there, it's the point I was trying to make is it would be really hard for me, especially in this running back class, to draft some of these wide receivers as much as I like them, as much as I like Jalen Royals. You know, I'll definitely have some Jalen Royals, but it would be really tough for me to pass up on an Ollie Gordon if he's there, on a DJ Giddens if he's there, on a Cam Scadabo if he's there. Heck, even I mean, maybe Bashul Tutin's where I draw the line. I don't know, but the point is, as I make it again, it's going to be hard for me to pass up on the running backs in this tier over the wide receivers.
Yeah, there's sometimes in the rankings where I feel like I'm almost pushing up receivers just because I'm tired of how many like consecutive running backs that I have.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just the way the class is, man. Like they're incredibly deep. The thing is, I don't know how we're going to feel. I don't know if we're going to feel that way in a month and a half, because the fact of the matter is some of these running backs are going to get put in bad spots.
Yeah.
Now, maybe there's enough good spots to fill the void. And maybe if it's not DJ Giddens, it is Tutin that landed in a good spot and is, kind of taking that place, or Scadabo moves up and Tutin takes Scadabo's place. Maybe there's enough supply there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think at the end of the day, we do have to remember to take that into account and be realistic and let go of some of our priors if the draft shakes out in such a way to where, oh, wait, actually, a lot of these receivers landed in really good spots, and a good amount of these running backs, like Giddens, got drafted in the 4th round, and they took Scadabo 2 rounds later.
Yeah.
Some stuff like that can happen. So it's just, I know I'm saying a lot of these edge cases that probably aren't likely, but just putting it in the ear of the listener to remember that, the NFL is very weird. And just because we've been kind of hammering like RBs over everything doesn't mean that in a month and a half in the 3rd round, we might be saying like, yeah, I'm getting all the Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, Jalen Royals that I possibly can.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I like those players. I like all these like Noel, Higgins, Royals. Yeah, I'll have exposure to all those guys for sure. It's the quarterbacks it's really going to be tough for me, but
Yep.
We did it. I think we actually did 27 players on accident. I put up way too many. But for the podcast audience, we started with Jeanty at the 101. Omarion Hampton, Tet McMillan, Trevion Henderson, Travis Hunter, Luther Burden is in our tier 2. Our tier 3, Emeka Egbuka, Quinshawn Judkins, Cam Ward, Caleb Johnson. Our tier 4, Trey Harris, Tyler Warren, Shador Sanders, Matthew Golden, Dylan Sampson, Elikai Manor. At tier 5, Jackson Dart, Devin Neal, Brashard Smith, Colston Loveland, Jalen Knoll. And in tier 6, Ollie Gordon, Jalen Milrow, DJ Giddens, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Royals, and Cam Scadabo. Matt Babich, we said we were going to go a half an hour with this. We're at a full hour right now. So any final thoughts before we wrap up and say goodnight to the people?
Just remember, it's okay to move rankings after the combine, but don't let the numbers that came across the screen on Thursday through Saturday make you just completely change your process. Do not throw away all of the data and all of the conversations we've had for the past few months or even years for some of these prospects.
Spoken like a wise man. And I agree. And don't double count it either. If a guy was already going to be fast, like don't give him extra points for being fast. So anyway, subscribe to the podcast or follow the podcast, whatever it is that you do. Be tapped into our podcast. It's new, it's there, it's on the go, and you can consume our content in multiple ways. For Matt Babich, for myself, Nobody cares about Aaron Rodgers. We'll see you later, everybody. Have a great night, a great morning, a great midday, wherever you are in your day. Have a fantastic part of it, and we will see you next time.